All right, all right, all right. Let's get started. Let's get started. Let's get started. My name is Phil Valentine. Um, Alan, you're gonna have to mute because your pedicurist is like jumping in there. My name is Phil Valentine. I've been in recovery since December 28th, 1987, working on year 37. In recovery. Been retired now for almost 6 months from the Connecticut Community for Addiction Recovery, where I was there for 25 years. Still doing a lot of training. Just finished the Advanced Academy with the Recovery Coach Academy UK. Again, really a special experience for me. Also, um, I'm about to embark on my second attempt of a through hike of the Appalachian Trail, journey of 2,197.4 miles. Flight leaves tomorrow morning. I did it once in 2015, so my whole goal again is just to start and see what happens. Enjoy each day as best I can. Not the same pressure to finish. But I recently, last year, had another bout with cancer diagnosis, an aggressive form of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Recovering from the chemo and the healing from that. So I want to walk some of that off, connect with God. Nothing like the woods to heal me, and long, long walks every day, sleeping in my tent every evening, listening to the owls and the cool breezes. Just a remarkable time. So that's a little bit about me. I'm sitting in my little cottage that I retired to with Sandy in Warwick, Rhode Island on the water. Very pleased to be here. And I would like to hear from some of you, doesn't have to be all of you, but your name, your location, where are you sitting? And what's been your latest adventure? Now, you don't have to go into huge detail about that, but what was you consider your latest adventure? Who'd like to start? Amber. Hi.
Hello, everybody. My name is Amber Van Grinsven, and I am located in Appleton, Wisconsin, about 25 minutes from Green Bay. So we're about to have the draft here, and it's going to get crazy. Everybody's preparing for that. And then I think for my latest adventure, I will share that I did my first sweat lodge on Sunday. That was
Wow.
an intense experience. I thought I died like 5 times, but I made it through the whole thing, and it was a very spiritual experience. So that's my adventure. Happy to
Thank
see you all.
thank you. You modeled that beautifully. Thank you, Amber. That's just what I was looking for. Ted.
Hey, I'm Ted. I live in Newtown, Connecticut. I'm in Bethel, Connecticut right now. And my latest adventure was to go through the academy training last week. And so I'm just finishing up some of my journal entries because I have a full-time job and doing the evening classes, it was just too much to try to do in a week. So yeah, that and we got a dumpster in December that we finally got picked up yesterday because we were lazy. And so I hurt myself probably yesterday trying to load stuff in there, but it's done. That was an adventure.
Thank you, Ted. Hi, Carly.
Hi, how you doing? My name's
Good.
Polly. I'm from London. Currently sitting in the living room with my cat. My latest adventure, I managed to get myself to Thailand, which has been on the top of my list for a very long time, and did lots of traveling around Thailand, only for a couple of weeks, but we fit a lot in. And yeah, absolute dream it was. So glad to be back though. Thank you. Nice to see you guys.
Thanks, Carly. Welcome. Ernest.
All right, yeah, I'm Ernest in Hastings, Minnesota, and I'm going to talk about my next adventure because in August I'm going to leave on a what we're calling Pedal for Recovery, 2,700 mile bike down the Great Divide Trail. and doing Facebook blogs along the way, just showing how a journey like that is very similar to a journey of recovery.
Yeah, thank you, Ernest. Beautiful. Sean.
Yeah, my name is Sean Parch. I'm here in St. Cloud, Minnesota, so it's nice to see another northerner in the mix. So this next weekend, I'm going to go join my sponsor out in Florida because I am just about burned out on the Minnesota extreme cold, and then 70 degrees one day and 8 degrees the next. So yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Sharon.
Good morning. I'm Sharon Hadley, and I'm here in Houston, Texas, in my office. And I recently had surgery on both of my feet, and I wasn't able to walk without excruciating pain before that. And so I've just recently began walking without pain. So when I hear about y'all's adventures, I get really inspired about the possibilities that are, available to me now.
Mm, wow, wonderful. Thank you. Uh, Emily, hi. Why can't I hear you, Emily?
I'm sorry, I was muted. Sorry about that. My name is Emily Marcotte. I'm the Director of Finance at CCAR. I am joining you all from the admin office in Hartford, Connecticut this morning. An adventure that I am on, I am currently studying for the Certified Management Accountant exam, and I am not enjoying every minute of it, but I am doing it because I've been talking about doing this for several years. So that is my current adventure.
Thanks, Emily. It's so great to see you. Glad you're
You
here.
too.
Scott.
Mino Gishnep, Anishinaabe, Beguijanini. Hello and good morning from Northern Michigan, from the Tribal Behavioral Health Offices here with Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa Chippewa Indians, your peer recovery coach and supervisor and mentor, and just rocking it out, getting ready for our 2025 25th season playing Cajun and Zydeco music, which is my self-care. Um, Kay Jones and the Benzie Playboys, I play the drums, and this is going to be hopefully our last year. We say that for the last 3 years now, uh, because we're a bunch of old guys, and it's time to move on and let some of the younger kids play the squeeze box, rub board, fiddle, and have fun. Just survived and finished up my prostate cancer treatments, and I'm officially undetectable status, which is amazing. And that goes to, if I was back in my using days, I wouldn't have cared and I wouldn't have followed through and I wouldn't have done any of that. So my adventures are living life on life's terms, daily, hourly reprieve from my previous lifestyle, and being that being that role model that we all aspire to be.
Thank you. Welcome, Scott. Hi, Joey.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm coming at you from Oneonta, New York, up in the Catskills. And my latest adventure, I've been a peer advocate and a recovery coach for several years now, but I've just recently become a peer professional in the correctional justice setting. So I'm working with the drug court team, and I'm going to the jail once a week, sometimes court. And it's very exciting to me, like to finally break through and make a difference and actually have the jail and the DA and the judge all on the same team.
Yeah,
I'm constantly learning. We're actually becoming a billable service in a couple of weeks now.
I'm
So all
sorry.
kinds of big stuff going on.
I'm sorry you're becoming a
That's my
bill.
latest adventure.
I'm kidding, Joey, but I'm sorry you're becoming a billable service. No problem.
Well, I mean, we're a non-for-profit,
No, I
but
get it.
they're allowing us to get some money from Medicaid. So,
Yep,
it's kind of tough to do anything right now. So
I
any
hear
little
you.
extra money will help.
I hear you. Okay, thank you. Colleen,
Hi, Phil. Hi, everybody.
how are you,
I'm
Colleen?
Colleen. I'm from living, right now I'm in sunny Jupiter, Florida. Sorry, guys, up north. And my last great adventure was taking my daughter across England and Scotland to visit friends. But my next great adventure is sitting for the RCP tomorrow and then opening my teen coaching practice.
Wow.
Thanks.
Thank you, Colleen. Good luck tomorrow. You're really good, though. Just be yourself. Waterbury. No, you just muted instead of unmuted. Waterbury, come back.
Willimantic.
Oh, Willimantic. Well, WRCC. I'm sorry. I should know that. I can't even remember what it looks like anymore.
Oh, Phil, can you hear me?
Just kidding.
Hi, Phil. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing great. Hello, everyone. I am Kelly Mills. I am a recovery coach professional. I'm also a woman in long-term sobriety coming up on 10 years, the end of June. And I'm also the Wyndham Recovery Community Center volunteer manager, loving my job, you know, what I'm doing, serving the people, the recovery people, I should say, of the community. And my latest adventure was I went to see the play The Wiz at the Bushnell Theater last week. And also before that, I last saw The Wiz was 46 years ago. So I was
Wow.
17 years old and I saw The Wiz on Broadway, you know, back then. And I got to see it again last week and I'm, you know, in 60-ish, you know, and everything. But I was like that little girl again.
Yeah.
I was like, and I really had a great time. Yes, you should have saw me right by the orchestra, you know, looking up on stage and everything. But I love you guys.
That's cool. Thank you, Kelly. Scott.
Good morning, Phil.
Good morning.
Good morning, team. My name is Scott Alexander. I'm at the Bridge Club of Greater Lowell in Lowell, Massachusetts. I'm a recovery coach, professional facilitator at the Bridge Club, and we work off of grants to reduce recidivism. I'm with a coworker this morning who just became a recovery coach, and we will soon be going into the Norfolk prison to
Wow.
do some work there with some inmates. So I'd like to let him introduce himself. My latest adventure was a short one, a little 2-hour cruise on the motorcycle on a last 60-degree day up into the country. And that's where I get my peace and serenity. But here's Alex.
How you doing, fellas?
Hi.
And ladies. My name is Alex Delgado. I'm a bilingual recovery coach. I'm sitting at the Bridge Club with Scotty. Um, my adventure is coming to work every day and grinding for my people.
Yeah. Thank you. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Michael, how are you?
I am fantastic. Hey, I really like how I can see you, but then when you talk, your screen turns pink. That's fun. Every morning I get up is an adventure, and I was told a long time ago, you can plan a trip, but you can't plan an adventure. So I've got trips planned. I've got going to California, trying to get out for the first time in 5 years, taking all my kids to California. But my current adventure is everybody wants data, and so I've trying to unload stuff, and I'm teaching myself a SQL programming language, which comes with its own challenges.
All right. Thank you, Michael.
Oh, I guess I forgot to announce I'm from Indiana, Pennsylvania. I'm a recovery coach, professional facilitator.
Yeah, good to see you. Hi, John.
Good morning, Phil.
Good
Good morning,
morning.
everyone. It's great to be here and see you all. I'm also from Oneonta, New York, in the same building as Joey. I coordinate peer support services here. It's a turning point of Oneonta. I work for Friends of Recovery, dedicated to others. I am a person in long-term recovery, 20 years last December 8th. My last great adventure was relocating, moving out of a house I occupied for 20 years. I occupied that house with my wife for my all 20 years in my recovery and just moved out of it. I downsized. She passed away some years ago, so it was, time to move on. And life is good. I was really blessed with a new location, 2 blocks from where I work here. It's like another 3 blocks closer than where I was. But and my next big adventure, I want to say, is my second knee replacement. And I hope to schedule that sometime real soon.
Wow. Welcome, John. Thank you. How's the
Thank you.
CCAR All Recovery meeting?
Hello, everyone. My name is Robert. I am the center manager for CCAR here in Danbury, acting center manager in New London for CCAR, and also acting center manager in Hartford for CCAR. So those are some of my responsibilities and roles for CCAR. I was thinking about my last adventure, and it just dawned on me. My last one was with my 2 boys. My oldest son and my middle son, we drove out to California. My oldest son had dreams and aspirations to be a rapper, and he was going out there to a music school. And we actually drove out there, and I don't even remember stopping at a hotel. I don't even think we stayed the night at a hotel. We drove through, all 3 of us. We would stop and eat and then use the bathroom and drive all the way straight to California, to Northern Hollywood. And it was an adventure, and it was actually it was a great adventure because the conversation that was happening in the car was amazing, and the view on the way to California was amazing. The mountains, the climate changes that we went through, it was just amazing. I really enjoyed it. It was really phenomenal. So, and you talked about touching base with God, and that was definitely one of those rides for me. So, thank you,
Robert. Alton, good to see you again.
Likewise. Hello, Phil, and hi, everyone. My name is Alton. I am sitting in my room in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. So I'm pretty much far from everyone here. Yeah, 6:17 here. We're having our iftar, as we call it, in this part of the world. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I'm also a recovery coach professional. And when you said adventure, Phil, I've been driving a lot in the last 2 weeks. So every single day feels like an adventure. Now, the cars here are pretty wacky, but because I'm the wackier person, I've managed to stay safe. And that's my adventure.
All right. Thank you. Khalees.
My name is Khalees, and I am in Lincolnshire, England. And my latest adventure, or my most recent adventure, was with my son this morning. I never know what to expect, and our conversations are just, you never know what's going to happen. And today we spoke about truth. We talked about perspective, how the world revolves around money and different ways that people can be rich in their life and experience abundance. And that was what we spoke about today. So that was an adventure. Never know what's going to come of it.
Speaking to a child can always be an adventure. You're never quite sure what's going to come up. So let me ask you, again, you're free to use the chat and put your thoughts in the chat, or you're also free to raise your virtual hand or just jump in. How do you define adventure? Because when I heard you guys speak of latest adventures, I had different perspectives of what you might think an adventure is. So, how do you define adventure? And you don't need to Google it, you don't need to look it up, you don't need to like hit your browser and type in adventure and see what comes up. How do you think of adventure? What is it? And this is where one of you like scrolls down and raises your hand like Ed just did because he's a good man. Thank you, Ed. Don't leave me hanging.
No, I won't. For me, it seems the older I get, every day is becoming more and more an adventure. And I say that simply because typically we try to plan our days, we have our schedules, and we kind of follow this customary ritual that we do in the mornings and throughout the day. For me, an adventure is when we go through experiences without any expectation, without planning, and we're open and willing just to let it happen as it happens and be very excited by the fact that we are in a free fall during that day and we follow the day. For me, then it becomes an adventure because you never know what's going to happen the next 5 minutes.
Thank you for that. Anybody else? What's an adventure? How do you define it? Gabe, good to see you in person.
Yeah, I'm sorry I haven't done this sooner. I love this space. Thanks for having me. Um, an adventure, for me is stepping out in faith, stepping out of my comfort zone, um, without knowing exactly what might happen. But stepping out in faith and lately in my life, it's seeking a new growth opportunity.
Yeah.
And that can look different depending upon what the adventure is.
Sure.
I think keeping an open mind to that.
Yeah. Michael.
I always go back to, like I said earlier, you can plan a trip, but you can't plan an adventure. It's experiencing something new in an unexpected way.
Okay. Wow. No, Mr. White is here. Mr. White. Now I can say, is it going to be Stephen or Stefan? But I think it's Stefan.
Dealer's choice.
Good to see you.
Likewise, good to see everyone. Good morning. So in the chat, I think I put something stimulating or perhaps awe-inspiring for me. But when you initially asked the question, I had a couple of divergent thoughts, right? So I had two job interviews yesterday, two virtual job interviews, and it felt like an adventure, right? First to have them and just how different they both were, right? For fairly high level positions. So it was a bit of an adventure, really. And the other thought I had was about, a journey I took to Cuba not that long ago. That was an adventure in a very different sort of way, right? So those are the couple things that came to mind for me.
Gotcha. Anybody else? Michael, what's an adventure? You can't sit there and just like pretend you're producing the whole time.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Serrano, a person in long-term recovery. In Hartford, Connecticut, and I think adventure, anything can be an adventure. Walking out this office, going down the hallway can be an adventure because I think it's unexpected, right? You can like it's like Michael Helsing said, you can plan something, but you can't really plan an adventure because it's unexpected. I like going, like I said, I'm about to make me a tea when I'm done out of here, and I bet you I'll go through this whole adventure of doing it.
Hey, Scott, what's an adventure? I see what you wrote in the chat too.
Yeah, so I mean it's fun because these can go on, but
Oh.
So the adventure for me, we're living where we are, northern Lower Michigan, out in the middle of nowhere. My wife sent me to do recycle to the township recycle bins. I saw a house on fire and a bear. All right. So it's like, when do we get to see a house on fire, which we never want, but our local volunteer guys, all young now, were there doing their community thing and they're taking care of business and, willfully jumped into something that normally people would run from. And then seeing a great big black bear hauling tail across in front of you. And then here for the tribe, our latest adventure is putting out doing our sugar bush, which is our maple syrup.
Oh yeah.
So that's been an adventure, because that's
Sure.
what was the community here.
I was just wondering if the bear set the house on fire. No,
He was running from it like he did, I mean, either that or he didn't want to get hit by my truck. But
yeah, I gotcha. That's cool. All right. What are the components of an adventure? What are their components? What are some of the common components you heard of? You heard. Now, come on, guys. I know you all want to sit there and like do your email and look at your browsers and do other things but you can participate too. You can raise your hand and talk to me and all that. And thank you, Ernest. Oh, so there's like unexpected curiosity. I'm going to get to that, Willie.
Yeah,
Something.
I would say something new, something unknown, and something that stretches me.
Ooh, I like that. Joey.
Yeah, anything that interests me could turn into an adventure for me. I'm kind of a fly by the seat of your pants guy.
My wife says the same thing about me. She doesn't always, not always in a nice way either. Jean.
For me, it's willingness to experience the unknown or the uncomfortable.
Right.
My wife volunteers me to embark on all kinds of adventures that normally I'm like, eh. And then once we go through it, it's like, you know what? I'm glad we did that.
Yeah. Look at all the ones that are going up in the chat. So there's a lot there too. The components of an adventure. Think about what are the components, right? Scott, go ahead.
I was thinking myself, freedom. I heard a lot of, freedom, being free, not like tied down to addiction, being adventure, uh, freedom.
Mm-hmm. Uh, yeah, Carly.
I think maybe just not having any expectations and just living for the moment.
Yeah. No, that's not Will, is it? Oh, my heart is full now. Will is in the room. Hi, Will.
How you doing, Phil? It's good to see
Great.
you.
Likewise.
Um, so I'm thinking, if I'm having an adventure, there's got to be an aspect of excitement, and it's got to be borderline fear. You know,
Yeah.
it's the whole idea of being on a roller coaster. Get as
Hmm.
close as you can to the edge without going over.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
Nice. Thank you.
it's good to see you, Phil.
Likewise, Sharon.
Well, I like what he just said, but I think of an adventure as something that is planned, but we don't know all of the details, and we're open to what's going to unfold, and there will be surprises, and and just having that openness to what's going to happen, and being able to pivot at any point, uh, that kind of thing.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, I agree. Sometimes I think there's a difference too between in my head, we talk about advocacy. There's a big A advocacy and a little A advocacy. And the big A adventure is I'm going to have the adventure of climbing Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa, the big A adventure, or even for me, embarking on the Appalachian Trail again tomorrow could be considered by many a big A adventure. And then I also think there were times when, um, we were all raising the kids and we were on the beach and they were starting to get a little like unsettled. And I would say, let's go on an adventure. And I don't know what that meant, but we would just go take a walk down the beach and what's that? What's under that rock? What's over there? So my sponsor says, he taught me this years ago to look for a moment of awe, AWE, and wonder every day. And when you're looking for that, to me, that's almost like the adventure component. We're looking for a moment of awe and wonder. Let me ask you another question, though, and you can put these in the chat or raise your hand. When you think of adventure, what emotions surface? Maybe you have to pull out your feeling wheel, but what emotions surface when you think of adventure? Excitement, joy, caution, right? Anticipation, fun, anxiety, a little anxiety, adrenaline rush, yearning, inviting, stimulation, a little anxiety, anticipation and trepidation, peace, expectations. That's interesting. Healthy dose of all of those mentioned. Excitement. One of the components that I was looking for that I didn't quite hear. Well, the first one is I'm seeing Alton, and when we were at the Advanced Academy, he really he combined two words for me that I hadn't really thought about, and I've been thinking about it ever since. And that was adventure and curiosity. And Khalees had emphasized that in the chat as well. That he said, if correct me if I'm got this wrong, Alton, but he said if the curiosity is no longer there, the adventure is over, right? In some ways. So, but the other piece I want to focus on for the purposes of this uh, uh, seminar or whatever, what this is called, Coaching for Coaches, is the movement component. There has to be, I think, some component of movement in an adventure. Can you be still and have an adventure? That's a question. Go ahead, Khalees. What do you like when?
Because
Besides,
like whenever you first asked this question, I was like, shoot, whenever I've done work on myself, I go on an adventure into my soul, like deep into my soul. And then I'm curious about myself. It's like we've talked about, I might
are
get
these
activated.
are these on like heavy doses of psilocybin or anything?
No, I'm completely like straight up. It's on caffeine. Like,
Oh, got you.
yeah,
So, but
but that's
so
curiosity because I'm curious. I'm like pulling at a string. Like, where does that string go? Why am I like,
so there's no physical movement, but is there movement in another quadrant?
there's a shift internally, there's a movement internally.
I got you. Will.
So I'm thinking every time I read a book or watch a movie, that can be an adventure. Every time I sit in a hospital room with a recovery, that's an adventure. Um,
Okay.
you're not actually moving, but it's you're going through a process of ups and downs, emotions, and you know, there's a beginning, there's an end, and so yeah,
Okay.
I don't. That's all I had.
Gotcha, Stefan.
Yeah, so can you be still, right? So I don't know. I've been on this lunar stuff lately, right? And I thought about the total eclipse of the sun last year, right? And what an adventure that was for me, right? I was at my tax accountant's office, and she and I went outside. She and I went outside, and we watched that, mind-bending, phenomenal, amazing, all-inspiring event happen. And there was definitely movement for me, right? As I stood and observed and witnessed and bared witness to something beyond the pale. So
Mhm.
yes, definitely can be still, I believe.
All right, thank you. Carly.
Phil, every evening before I go to sleep, I sit and I do a guided meditation and I go on the maddest adventures. And I do have to sit because I fall asleep very quickly. And yeah, it takes me on a whole nother level to another dimension. So yeah, absolutely. When I'm still, I can have an adventure.
So your body is still, but there's movement. That's almost like spiritual movement, isn't it? Hmm. Kevin.
Yeah, hi everybody. That's a very interesting movement is really interesting, and it made me think that there's something new that happens when in an adventure, something novel that you didn't expect, that you couldn't predict or anticipate, and then something inside you does move. Um, so I just wanted to add that I think novelty and unanticipated, like when you said, whether it's small A or big A, what's under that rock? You can't, you don't know.
Mhm.
There's a surprise element
Yeah.
to it. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you. Hi, Scott.
Yeah, thank you. This is wonderful because it reminds me. I've spoken of this many times. I don't think it too often because when I started my journey into recovery, I had taken myself out of music for a couple of years because let's face it, a lot of the environments where I make money, there's a lot of alcohol and that kind of. So I took myself away. When I decided to come back, I had changed from the musician and artist that I was prior, and I was, not only a little bit of a better player, I was easier to get along with, and I understood the cohesion. So this is what I'm talking about. There are moments in the chaos of playing drums with and playing music with six other guys on stage. There are moments that I have, and it's hard to explain, where it is when things are clicking and we're all in sync together, we're paying attention to each other and having fun. It is dead calm in my head. And I will literally pull out my ears to hear the band audibly rather than through our monitors. And there are moments, only people in recovery understand this, where or other musicians, where it is absolutely dead calm and all is right. You know what I mean? Where it is just like I'm amazed when it happens. It's not often, but it does happen where I'm like, what is happening? It is dead calm. And we play fast, hard dance music, and I'm just I'm playing. I can't hardly even explain. My wife gets it because she'll see it that when it
Right.
happens, and she gets happy. I can see her smile.
So let me ask you a question about that. How does that tie into adventure?
So the adventure is when I because a lot of times because I suffer a lot of different diagnoses. It's not the easiest to get up in front of a big crowd of people or a small crowd and be on stage like we do when we're training people.
Right.
When we're actively teaching an RCA or facilitating an RCA, the adventure in that is you never know what you're going to get when you step up there. And
Right.
sometimes it's terrifying. And at a festival, when you got all these other musicians you really look up to, and they're dancing and having fun as a result of your movements and actions, it is a beautiful thing and it's really hard to achieve, but it's terrifying.
I get you. I think it's kind of like the adventure is the movement to get to that place. What you're describing, I think a lot of athletes would say is like being in the zone, like a tennis player is not even thinking of what shot they're going to hit. They're just doing it, and they're playing out of their heads, and that's kind of what you're talking about. A musician they get in the zone. Gotcha. Ernest.
It's slightly different take, I think, for me because adventure and outdoors, physical health, all of that is a value that I hold pretty strongly, along with family, coaching, creativity, some other things. But adventure it's more foundational for me than just movement. And yes, all of these values that I know or that I've set as my compass or guiding star, adventure being one of them. I want to see movement in every single one of those as I develop and grow. But it's always been something that, for me, is a value that I hold quite strongly. And so a little bit different, more foundational, I think, than just something that we do and grow through.
Yeah, so I think I align with your thoughts too, Ernest, that let me ask the question this way. We're talking about adventure. Let's add an R on the end. What is an adventurer? And then what is that in the classic sense? Somebody talk to me what the classic historical adventurer is. What is that? Anybody?
Indiana Jones.
You okay? Yeah, Ted.
Yeah, I was thinking, more like the explorers, Columbus, Magellan, those guys.
Yep.
Lewis and Clark.
Right. Explorers. That's what Gabe put in the chat. Um, so does that change if would you, yeah, Stefan.
Um, yeah, I just want, I think like around the theme of explorers, like I think about seekers, right? You know,
Mm.
adventure seeker,
Hmm.
right? Of varied and multiple and many types of experiences.
Yeah. Kevin Carbonani just put in the Laird Hamilton, the surfer and all that. Yeah, he's a big wave rider. He's an adventurer, but he does all kinds of things besides that too. So yeah. Storm from the X-Men. We're not afraid. That's funny, Shireen. Yep, there you go. So just think about that because why I want to talk about this is I like to think of myself as an adventurer. And for me, that there's a huge component for me. I think we can go on trips and adventures in our mind and do all that kind of thing. And we can look at it from that perspective. But for me, an adventurer is somebody that's willing to step out of their comfort zone, right? To really move into new places like my daughter Sam, when she graduated from school, she became a teacher, a missionary teacher in Kenya. I'm like, talk about the adventure of a lifetime. And she was there for 5 years. So stepping out in faith for me, stepping out in faith, experiencing something new, but there's movement physically. There's a component of that moving physically to do that. Like I'm going to take this new kayak out and paddle or use the electric motor and go into a place I've never gone before, or out in the weather that I probably shouldn't go out in and see what happens. Or I'm going to go hike the trail in this rainstorm that most people probably wouldn't be out there, but you experience new things. I'm thinking of like John Muir, who founded the national parks in the United States. And there's a story where he just goes out into the woods with like his satchel. He has a loaf of bread and a sketchbook. I mean, talk about minimalist. Well, he was out in the wind and he writes about being in climbing a 300-foot pine tree in like gale force winds and holding onto the top of that pine tree as it's swaying back and forth, perfectly at one with nature, perfectly. And I'm like, whoa. I'm, I don't know if I'd have the courage to do that, but talk about an adventure. That's just the way he's wired. I was wired that way. I'm wired that way too, that I want to see what the next adventure is for me. And I've actually probably held myself back from a lot of things that I wanted to do or could do. Um, what does adventure have to do with a recovery journey? Speak.
Recovery is an adventure.
Is it?
It
Talk
is.
more about that. That's the
Yeah.
easy answer.
Well, so and particularly when I think about the multiple pathways of recovery, which is emerging and unfolding, and I think for me as a person in an abstinence-based program of recovery for the last 24 years,
Mhm.
it's been nothing but adventure, right? It continues to be adventure. Even a while ago when I referenced these two job interviews, both of them are aligned to recovery and recovery support services and being in a role of leadership in that, right? And that's an adventure, right?
Yeah.
24 years ago, when I was homeless and sleeping on the A train in New York City, I couldn't imagine that. So it's
Yeah,
all been an adventure for me.
I agree. Life is an adventure. Thank you for that, Joey.
Yeah, I feel the same way. My recovery has brought me to so many places that I probably would have been, uh, and out of places where I thought I'd never get out of, prison and, just meeting people and making connections. And now I'm the person that talks with the DA and the chief of police and the sheriff and, you know, going to recovery conferences all over the place. And just, last February it was cold and we saw one in Florida and it was like, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
We just went, you know. But that's all for me, that's all part of my recovery. The people I meet, I met my wife in recovery. I mean, so my colleagues at work. I was coming to a meeting here. I was looking for a place in a meeting when I came home from prison. And I come to a recovery center where they have meetings every day at noon, and I've been working here ever since, almost 8 years now. It's
Wow.
all adventure.
Yeah. Thank you. Gabe.
Yeah, I mean, what an adventure recovery is, for me, the fear, um, the acceptance of surrendering and becoming vulnerable and accepting help from other people. I mean, stepping out of a very, for me, what became a very sick comfort zone. It was sick and self-destructive, but I knew how to do that, right? And so to leave that space and actually face my demons head on. Um, I mean, what an adventure, but I couldn't have done it without the support. So becoming humble and letting go of that ego and that pride. Um, yeah, uh, nothing like it, man.
Gabe, let me ask you a question. When
Sure.
you started your recovery journey, were you thinking of it as an adventure?
That's a great question.
Uh-huh.
No, I was looking at it
And you know what? Because
more of a chore than an adventure, right?
yeah, but what you said, I think was one of the gifts given to me in my early recovery is that first time I walked into a 12-step meeting, Alcoholics Anonymous, and the first time I saw the steps and I saw that God was the answer. For me, I just said, thank God. And it was almost like something in me said, let this adventure begin. I want to see where this goes. I want to see where this pathway goes. David, good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to see everyone. Thanks, Phil. I'm in London, by the way. I'm going to have to disappear shortly because I'm actually in the middle of my working day. But for me, the um, the sort of adventure and recovery for me is the kind of courage to explore new places, and they could be physical, they could be mental, mostly really in recovery, mental, and that's the sense of adventure. It's places that perhaps I've been too afraid to look at, either
Mm.
my past or my present, or in my future.
Huh. Man, you always like when I do these, I learn so much because you teach best what you most need to learn, right? So, or you facilitate. So thank you for that. I'm just making more notes. John, what's going on?
Yeah, for me, like an adventure is my recovery. I mean, when I
Yeah.
think of an adventure, I think of having to be my best self. Um, and I couldn't have ever, when I think of the things I've been able to accomplish in my 20 years in recovery, you know, some of them it's been like pulling a rabbit out of a hat, you
Hmm.
know, in a
Sure.
sense.
I do.
And I take so much recovery capital and pride in that, you know.
Hmm.
I could have never, ever, ever had the courage to take on and achieve some of the things I've done
So,
without my
so
recovery,
tie
without
that,
my
I want you to tie that experience into that's like so where's the adventure in that?
the adventure is in facing the unknown, to have the courage to face
Ah,
the unknown.
there you go. Thank you. I appreciate that. Ted.
Yeah, when I came into recovery about 21 years ago, I had made some glaring mistakes that hurt a lot of people. So I'm the guy who wrote caution earlier and expectations earlier because
Yeah.
when I first got into recovery, I was afraid of what I might have to encounter. And I also didn't want to be that explosive person in recovery that I was, coming into it. And then also, I expected, I expected rejection because I'm so familiar with it, instead of expecting healing, which I'm not so familiar with.
Right.
So for me, that's like an adventure because you're going into a journey that is could be perceived as dangerous, could be perceived as exhilarating. But for me, my mindset coming in was that I didn't want to screw up again. I didn't want to make another mistake. And I've learned that, mistakes are okay as long as you learn from them and, turn from them. So
Great. Thank you. Scott?
Yes, my re my recovery being motivating at the time in 1996 when I found the program recovery, like you talked about, Phil. It was like seeing the truth for the first time. It was like the pieces of a puzzle, and them all coming together and finally fitting. And I understood what was wrong with me, and then what I needed to do in order to recover. I got a lot of hope when I read that we have more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless condition of mind and body. And I got a lot of hope from that. And when I read the doctor's opinion and I got Dr. Sokor's description of the alcoholic and of addiction, it finally made sense to me. The twofold illness, mental and physical, and the allergy. And I became motivated. I became inspired. And I wanted more, and I kept searching, and I was in prison, and I was in these study halls. I was part of my sentence was to complete a drug program inside the walls of the state prison, and I ended up in study hall for 8 hours a day, and I just read and studied those first 163 pages, the program of recovery for myself, and
Right.
I became so inspired and motivated and everything finally coming together for me. It was an awesome experience.
Yeah, thank you. I think, for me, when I became open to the possibility that there was a way out of this prison of addiction, that I became open to the adventure and the adventure of recovery. And it's still true, like even when I picture myself being on the Appalachian Trail tomorrow and like doing the whole thing 10 years ago, is that adventure for me is also movement down a path or a track or movement down in a direction. So there's movement and there's direction and there's a guide to which direction I'm going to go. And I think that's a lot of what adventure is. And again, to go what Alton talked about, being curious about where this was going to lead, right? Like recently, I was just on the Appalachian Trail. I gave a little scout. I took a 2,000-mile scouting journey in my car, but I ended up in Asheville, North Carolina, visiting Dr. Pickles and Mockingbird, who I hiked the trail with in 2015. And we went like a mile and a half, and it wasn't anything major. I mean, it was cool. We were in some woods and it was pretty brown because it's not greened up yet. And then we all of a sudden started to come to the up the hill and we start to see light. And all of a sudden you step out and you're looking at this vista that's like, whoa. And the trail kind of wove down through the grass and up and over a hill, and you're like, this is like, I got to see where that trail goes. It's like that's an analogy for like I get these glimpses. I think so someone was talking about having these miracles like magic out of a hat, that you get one of those and you go, whoa, I didn't see that coming. And then the next one comes. I think it was John was talking about that. That's what adventure is for me. Movement down a path. Let's spend the last time we have together. I really want you to think about Working with a recovery and the concept of adventure. How does the two tie together? Talk to me about it. Go on, somebody open up the conversation
So,
here.
so I will. You
Okay,
know,
Kevin.
and I think I think you really, you just said it, right? You just gave shape and form to us for, for that piece, right? And working with the recovery, like I'm thinking about this person who's new in recovery that, excuse me, I've recently been just kind of having some conversations and dialogue with, right? And one of the things that they shared with me not that long ago was that they get mad and they get frustrated with their family when their family brings up, like their past, right? And so I sort of listened and I said, your family went on a journey with you, right? Like you might not think about it that way, but they went on a journey with you. They were worried, they were concerned, they didn't know what to do, like, all that stuff, right? And I said to them, I said, do you think maybe that like there's some healing and stuff that they need to do that maybe they just need to do on their own time and not in the time frame that you want them to, right?
Mhm.
And I think just kind of, you know, that all of that stuff, right? All of that stuff that like, we can describe it as unmanageability or whatever the term we want to use it, but all of that stuff that is some of the repercussions and ripple effects of addiction become part of the journey to help recoveries to reflect upon, to think about, to maybe develop some skills and strategies to find a path forward. So that's one of the ways that I'm kind of thinking about that.
Love it. Thank you. Ed.
Phil, earlier you said something about adding the letter R to the word adventurer, because then
Yeah.
what is an adventurer?
Yeah.
And I think as peers or recovery coaches, in some ways, we are adventurers. We are
Mhm.
people who have had an adventure, who understand the benefits and the importance and the significance of it. You yourself said, as a parent walking on the beach, you would suggest to your kids, let's go on an adventure.
Right.
Having seen the value and the benefits of it, you opened your children's minds to this acceptance of being willing to go into the unknown and without fear and to learn.
Mm.
My father, with a large family, I'm got a bazillion of brothers and sisters, but he, on Sunday afternoons, we lived on a farm. He would put us all in the car and we would go for what we would call a car adventure. We would go down to the long driveway. At the end, he would say left or right, and we would decide. And not only that, but every intersection, he would say left or right or forward or do we turn around? And we would vote and we would make that adventure. Here's my point. As recovery coaches, not everyone understands the adventure and is not willing to take the risk of recovery or feel that they are capable of it or don't understand the benefits. As recovery coaches, we are adventurers and we can lead them just as you led your children and just as our father led us on a venture every Sunday afternoon.
Wow. Thank you, Ed. Great analogy. Love that. Joey.
Yeah, for me, every time I sit with a recovery, it's an adventure because I don't know. I'm listening, so I want to hear where they're coming from, what they're doing. I've learned so much in the years of doing this job and new ways of recovery, new ways to look at things. And for me, when I'm sitting there listening to that person for the first time and, you know, even the ongoing evolution of that individual, that's my adventure. What's going to work for this person? What is working for this person? What's not working for that person? And gosh, I think about the first time 8 years ago when I walked into John's office that's on the call with us. He was my recovery coach. I didn't even know what the hell a recovery coach was. I was like, what the heck is
Yeah.
this guy gonna do, right?
Right.
Now he's my colleague and friend.
Amen. That's cool. Thank you. Sharon.
I think about, my own recovery coach who, came to me when I was in prison. And through identification that, I knew that they knew what I was experiencing, and then talking about what they had experienced in recovery, they gave me the hope and courage to try change because they said, I'm going to help you. And I went straight from the prison to their office, and just the offer to go with me gave me the courage to go try it myself. I had never done it until somebody said, well, would you like me to go with you? And so, I try to do that same thing with, the people that I work with, to, identify with them, and then, offer the excitement and hope that recovery can have to offer, and just walk with them by side as they discover left or right, or should we turn around? I loved Ed's story.
Yeah. Wait, what, Sharon? You were in prison? Someone so sweet and kind. You were in prison?
Only 14 times.
14 times. Just messing with you. I don't know that, Sharon. Okay. Alton.
Yes, I'm loving all of this because I remember the training. I think you asked the question about curiosity and how do you know if you're in curiosity or not? And I just sort of said, as you paraphrase, like if it doesn't feel like if it doesn't feel like an adventure, then I've lost my curiosity. I feel like I'm on autopilot, like someone else said.
Mhm.
But in terms of a recovery, I see it as meeting them where they're at. So, I start a conversation. I'm like, well, where are they? I know last time we were somewhere else, but where are they today? So the
Mhm.
more I engage and the more I go on this, you said movement down a path, the more I can kind of see where they're at in their journey. Because I believe everyone's on a journey, but are they on an adventure?
Mhm.
And I've always been adventurous. Like from a young age, I like what Ed said. I had a similar experience with my dad. Oh, at the end of that trip, we would get Kit Kats, so that was fun. Would just break a Kit Kat at the end of it, and that was always exciting. Even though we knew as kids that was going to happen. And yeah, because of that, I was obsessed with infrastructure. And in a place where I live, the infrastructure always changes. There's always like new neighborhoods popping up every 2 years. And
Mhm.
then it started becoming other things like light bulbs and hair. And now I'm on this recovery coaching path. And for me, that part of me that's inside, I always try to make sure it never shuts down. Like I always want to make sure everything kind of feels like an adventure. And when I'm with a recovery, if I can get them to feel adventurous with what they're doing, I know I'm meeting them where they're at. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
hard to describe shortly in summary what goes on, but yeah, I hope I did it justice.
Yeah, thank you. Well said. John.
Yeah, like in simplest terms, I think about the times I've recoveries have like taken me up on an offer to uh teach them how to have fun again, and I propose a fishing outing, and I think of what adventure that might be in their minds, to take me up on a social thing, where we've never been social before, we've never had the endeavor of, like what do you do for fun, like, to engage in that together,
Mhm.
and what that might take. Um, and it's been great, the outcomes have been great, in my mind's eye, I could think about times we'd be out there on a lake, and that happens, that moment happens and they're like, oh, yeah, this is it, or I see what you mean, this is great. I could do this. And there's like that pure smile, in sobriety. And then there's the adventure I get out of taking up the recovery that wanted me to go ice fishing with him. and I'm walking out onto frozen Goodyear Lake, towards his fishing hole, and I didn't even have my cleats on.
Yeah.
That was an adventure because not too far away I could see where the lake wasn't frozen.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
But yeah, these engagements, these type of engagements where you're trying to enrich another's life, through healthy means.
Hmm. Well,
They've been
yeah.
adventurous.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Um, Art Woodard was always famous was saying, pay attention to what has heart and meaning to the recovery, right? And if something has heart and meaning, someone talked about the light going on. That's what we pay attention to and ask questions about. Um, there's I'm seeing uncovering from what you guys are sharing that there's really there's the adventure for the recovery coach working with a recovery, right? There's that adventure piece because I don't know where this is going to go. I don't know what path they're going down. Let's see what happens. I want to know, here's a question that you could ask a recovery, and it would be, Sharon kind of alluded to this too, is what adventure would you like to embark on? I mean, have you ever asked a recovery that, you know? And like, kind of like, I think it was Ed talking about his dad, he kind of manufactured it. But what an empowering thing to ask somebody what kind of what maybe they never looked at it as an adventure or they haven't. What adventure would you like to embark on? I think that's a very powerful question. Um, and I think I've asked my kids that, what does an adventure look like for you? What would you like to do? Uh, what's holding you back from doing it? You know? Any thoughts about that question? Because here's your next question then. I'm your coach. Each one of you are my recoveries. I'm going to ask you, what adventure would you like to embark on? Talk to me about your next adventure. What adventure would you like to embark on? Nobody wants to go on an adventure? You all have.
I'll take. Oh, go ahead. I was
Hi,
gonna say I'll take the
Michael.
plunge, but go ahead. No, go ahead.
All right, we'll come back to you. Michael?
Going to Puerto Rico, April 4th, and I'm gonna stay over there for 9 days. And I'm trying to explore places I've never been. And I was born in Puerto Rico, right? So it's gonna be a lot of adventures those days. Like I'm taking every single day to do something.
Well, you've got something. So I think it was, who was it? Michael said you can plan a trip, but you don't plan an adventure, right?
I'm not
So,
planning anything. I'm just gonna go.
so when you're there, you're going to like take day trips to different parts.
Different places, and I'm not like I'm just gonna drive.
Gotcha. Cool. That's an adventure. Love it. Ernest, what adventure would you
I,
like to embark on?
I already mentioned mine at the beginning, the
Mhm.
bike trip, but I have another question about your previous question.
Yeah.
And when you run into participants or recoveries that respond with, I do not want adventure in my life. I need the safety, the structure, um, is that just a different definition of adventure maybe, where for me it's the physical outdoor doing something. You mentioned, I think of
Um,
my wife as well. She loves to be at home doing her projects and being having that comfort or safety is important to her. And
sure.
so I don't know if you can talk about that.
Oh, definitely. So you wouldn't use the adventure question on every recovery. I would rely on your art of coaching recovery to say like, this person has an adventuresome spirit. Let me explore what this is like and maybe ask the question then. So it's not like, it's just another tool or way to think about working with a recovery. Again, we don't use the same approach or the same questions with every recovery. So that's how I would answer that. But if I learned someone like, grew up on a farm, was outdoors, all of this, and their recovery had, whatever it might be, that there are times I would pull that question out and say, what adventure would you like to embark on? And yeah, thank you for that. That's a great question. Shireen.
My adventure, I would love to skydive, but I'm such a chicken, so I would stick to jet skiing. That's something that I always wanted to do, just to see if I can manage to stay up, challenge myself.
Shireen, so you're coaching yourself, and somebody said, I've always loved to skydive, but I'm a chicken. What question would you ask that person?
Why are you scared? You could do it. Go for it.
So,
Cheerleader mode.
yeah, so if you really wanted to skydive, what would be the next step for you to do?
Just do it. Just jump off the bridge and do it. Just do
No,
it.
you're not going to jump off the bridge by yourself. Woman, you're going to have to like what? You're going to have to actually call a skydiving place and schedule your appointment.
Yeah, you're about right. At least it'll be
Schedule the
safe.
day.
It'll be
Schedule
safe,
the
right?
Well, yeah, you're going to do it with like out in Ellington. They have an airport that does it all the time. So look it up, schedule it, and tell me how your first jump went. Michael, look at her. She's like cringing, going, "Oh my God, I might actually do it." No.
You know, I I grew up a little bit everywhere and lived all kinds of places and Panama was probably one of my favorite ones. And back then I used to sail and windsurf all the time. So
Mhm.
I always had this lifelong bucket list item of sailing across all seven seas. Um, and then I broke my back, and so maybe if I get a lot of money and get sails that are automated and powered, that might be one thing. Um, but I do also have a bucket list item of visiting Machu Picchu. I just find it fascinating. Um, my most current adventure that I've got planned, like I said, was going to California in August. My wife has never been, there, so we're gonna drive through San Francisco and across the Golden Gate Bridge and hoping to leave the kids with my dad and taking her on some adventures through the redwoods and just seeing what we come across and what we find.
Yeah, thank you. Ted.
Yeah, so in October it'll be our 40th wedding anniversary, and I'm trying to think about ways to be creative in the way that I show love to my wife and show love to our five kids that are all in their 30s. And
Mhm.
so for me, that's sort of an adventure because of all the landmines that I think are out there from the past, but also I don't want to dictate it the way I've always dictated stuff. So this coaching training that I've gone through just helps me to think, how can I just ask them, do you want to go right or left? I think that I need to be willing to let go a little bit in order for this adventure to take place. But I want to do something really fun for the two of us to build intimacy again with my wife. So, we're at that age where we need to reconnect.
Yeah. Have you ever asked her?
Yeah, her favorite answer is I don't know. And it's because I've been, to her point, a real lecturer. And so I'm trying to walk away from,
Gotcha.
driving too hard.
Well, you know what? Recovery is a journey towards self-awareness. So I love your self-awareness around that. Good man. Continue. Um, all recovery meeting over there in Danbury.
Hello, my name is Debbie. I'm a recovering addict, volunteer recovery here at DRCC. Right? Well, my adventure definitely started here as I grew older to and group in my recovery. But my adventure is always going through with my passion, and passion is my daughter. And she travels a lot with her job. She's a photographer. She lives in Hollywood, Florida. And she's been to Costa Rica. She's been to Cuba. And through her is how I go through adventure. And I heard someone talk about a bucket list, and she's always wanted me. And I also heard about a fear. Mine is flying. And she's like, if you can get over your fear to fly, Mom, I will take you to Puerto Rico. I've never been there. My family's from there. So that would be an adventure that I'm looking forward to, definitely. And I really like everything that I heard because it gives me something to look forward to. Gives me a goal for my future, you know, and I'm just so happy to have been here to hear the stories and your adventures. I
Yeah,
hope to become part of that so I can share it one day
thank
on
you.
this platform. So thank you.
Thank you. Ed.
Phil, earlier you mentioned that we should look for moments of awe and wonder in every day.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love my next adventure to be a trip to either the pyramids, the Great Wall of China, or the Grand Canyon. I saw the Grand Canyon when I was very, very young. I don't think I truly appreciated it, but I think any three of those trips would fill me with the awe and wonder of the day.
So what's the next step?
Call a travel agent.
Well, are you going to do it?
You know, I just made a decision in my mind right now. I haven't even put my head around it, but it's something that I should be looking at.
Hey, Ed,
Yes.
I'm going to tell you a secret between you and I. You and I aren't getting any younger.
I know.
You know, we don't have, that someday down the road, we don't have a lot of some days up ahead. If
I
you want
think that
to do it,
will I
just
think
do
that
it.
happened for me, Phil, when I decide to kind of taper off my being an adventurer and working with others and being my own adventurer for myself.
Well, you know what? It's a both and. You can do both at the same time. It's not an either or.
Thank you.
You can help people on your adventure. They'll show up, I'm sure. Carly.
Hi there. Yeah, honestly, my adventure right now, as I said, I did the whole trip thing to Thailand, and I'm a single mom of a 19 and 20-year-old. That's been a huge, long adventure, but it can continue. But for me, my adventure right now is to do with being a recovery coach and a sober companion, and that is a huge adventure for me. I'm coming onto these webinars. I've managed to get a CV together. I'm putting it out there, and looking at building on myself and working with others, not just as a sponsor, is really where I'm going on my adventure right now. And I don't know what's going to come of it, but I'm really excited, because I'm going to be positive and I'm manifesting. So
I, you raise a good point, Carly. The point is that sometimes, I mean, I looked at my career at CCAR was always an adventure, but that's like a big, like, kind of a perspective to look at your profession or your career path, and you're walking down that career path. What I needed for me was to also have mini adventures, like, I'm going to take the dog for a walk in this little new park, or I'm going to,
understand that. But for me, Phil, I'm riddled with arthritis. I haven't worked for 2 years. I've had 3 different types of surgery.
yeah,
And for me, this getting out there and actually being able to say to myself, I can now work and I can now be there and do this, which is I've put everything into wanting to be a recovery coach. Right now, for me, that's a massive adventure for me because I
Beautiful.
don't really leave the house.
Beautiful. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan.
So I just wanted to say that I'm really kind of simpatico with Ed when you mentioned the Grand Canyon, the pyramids, and the Great Wall. So two of those, the Grand Canyon and the pyramids, are on my list. And actually, I've been looking at going to Egypt for a year and a half, and I made the decision just earlier this week that in October I'm going to go. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna buy the ticket. I'm gonna connect with this tour company that I've traveled a couple times with before, and I'm gonna go. So that in October. So that's an adventure. A little longer out, but one of the other adventures, and I've really been wrestling with this for the last 3 months or so since I left since I left my last job and have been doing independent work, is whether or not to give myself a year of this adventure of, doing my own independent consulting and training, right? And I think after these interviews yesterday, I think I made the decision that, you know what, I like the autonomy and the freedom and the flexibility to do this, right? Does it guarantee me 100 grand? No. But it's not bad. And it's an adventure and it's opportunity. So I think I say that as I waver a little bit, but I think I've made the decision that I'm going to give myself a year, right, to do my own thing and see how this adventure goes, right?
So what happened to those two job interviews? So you're just like,
Well, so
they're
yeah,
out.
I mean, well, no, they're not. I'll be honest. One of the jobs they called me. They were like, "Hey, you think you might be interested in this job?" And I was kind of interested. I have to relocate, and
So you're not interested.
yeah, for that one. The other job I would really take.
Okay.
I think I'm a long shot for it, but I would really take that job. So,
Okay.
so that's been the back and forth, right? Like my own adventure or someone else's. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
So when I think about adventure, like I knew for me to stay motivated, I needed something to look forward to. And adventures were always something for me to look forward to. Um, and I don't know, that avoided, and one of the stages of recovery that we avoid getting stuck. And that was the way I avoided getting stuck, was to look forward to something new and exciting, whether it was the trip to the Cape with the family back when we had all the kids, whether it was coaching this next soccer season, whether it was whatever it might be. So now that, I'm looking at retirement as an adventure, I've been very blessed that I thoroughly enjoyed working and I thought of it as an adventure, but I thought that there were new adventures for me in retirement that I could enjoy even more. So what a blessing to choose between I had two wonderful choices, right? Um, and I hadn't really thought about when I had cancer last year. I had thought about hiking the trail, and we have the BC 77 BC, the Breakfast Club of 1977. So that's the year I graduated high school. We were sitting there, and I was talking about, well, maybe I need an adventure to like try the Appalachian Trail 10 years after I did it the first time. And I was sitting there, and a guy was like, well, if you go, let me know. I'd be interested in going. And I was like, well, okay. He said, well, what percentage are you thinking of going? I was like, 60% back then. Well, tomorrow the plane is leaving, and Jeffrey's iPhone, and he's Jeff Schmidt. He's my buddy from high school, and he's going on the adventure with us. Jeff, you want to unmute and say anything you want to anything about your upcoming adventure with me? You got to unmute. Do you know how to unmute? No. Michael, can you unmute him? Michael might be able to. He's new to all this.
I'm
How's
gonna.
that? How's
There you
that?
go. There you go.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, little technology challenge on here on this end. I'm Jeff. And before I comment on Phil's um, kind introduction, to hear all of your feedback, what Phil didn't mention, I've been in recovery 25 years. And I love all of your perspectives on adventure being both emotional and physical and creating distance. And Phil, thank you for the invite for this. This was very, very enjoyable and very insightful. And I wish you all continued recovery. But yeah, when Phil mentioned he was thinking of doing it back in May, I got home and said to my wife, and I said, I think I'm going to do this. And so I'm glad that Phil's health was able to let him to progress from 60% to, I'm pretty sure we're at 100% now with the planes booked and
Oh, you
everything.
gotta give me 98.
98. Okay. Okay. Well, I'm 100% because I've already paid for everything and I'm
Yeah.
going if I have to solo. But I'm really looking forward to it. And I think in listening to everybody's comments, I think I'm a physical adventure person. I like creating distances and going to new places. And Phil mentioned that little mini trip to Asheville, North Carolina. And Phil, I think I even sent you a comment when you sent me a picture that really got me looking forward to walking down a trail that you don't know what's at the top of the hill, what's around the corner. And it kind of ties into all of this. And strangely enough, I will celebrate my 25th anniversary of recovery while we're on the trail. So that's June 16th. So that'll be a special day for me. So thank you for letting me comment. Thank you all for your insights. It's been a great call, and I really enjoyed listening, Phil. And thank you for the invite.
Jeff, that's my, I remember on when I hiked the trail, I had my 10,000th day of recovery in
That's huge.
2015. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Jeff, my trail name is Right Click, so I'm gonna probably still have the same trail name, but Jeff doesn't have a trail name yet. Anybody have any like suggestions?
That's gotta happen. It's gotta happen there. It's gotta
Oh, it's
happen
gotta
there.
happen there. I got you. Of course it does. Um, so we're talking a lot about um, embarking on our own journeys of recovery, working with recoveries. The sense of adventure, I think, is so important, not just in recovery, but some sense of adventure in life. That keeps it, for me, it keeps life interesting. We got a couple minutes left, and I'm always interested to hear what Lincolnshire, England has to say. Yes, Khalees. Well, what do you like making notes and drawing about these days? I'm curious.
Um, Myself, my
Hmm.
awareness, my learnings, my hopes. Um, I don't know. I mean, like I've been in a really deep emotional space this week, so like really like reflecting and thinking and stuff. That's me personally, and I think I don't know. I go to the trees, I do a lot of walking, a lot of talking to myself, a little, getting spiritual. And so I'm really into anything and everything. That's a asset and a liability for, some might see that as a liability too, too curious, too wondery, too deep. But yeah. So I like go into anything. Like I said this morning, my conversations with my son, talking
Yeah.
about, how like the areas of life you can be rich in. I have an 11-year-old. How beautiful is that? Like, what a gift. So I can just get into anything and everything. My latest drawing is a fox,
Yeah.
and a moon and a spiral, and I've been drawing all sorts of stuff. I did my curiosity, wonder. I draw anything and everything.
Yeah, I would say that you for me have your journey of recovery is more than a journey. You are an adventure. You're on an adventure of recovery. You look at recovery as truly an adventure, and I admire that in you. You inspire me with that.
Thank you.
Okay, we got 1 minute left over there in Danbury. You're gonna wrap us up? Maybe. Their hands raised, I guess. There
Uh,
they go.
I'm Robert. I'm a person in recovery. I just wanted to share real 30 seconds. March 25th, I will be having 34 years in recovery. Woo!
There you go. Congratulations. All right. So You guys are welcome. I think the best way to follow, if you're interested in our adventure, probably tomorrow, Jeff and I might take a selfie that'll be posted on, hopefully on Springer Mountain, Georgia, the southern terminus of the Appalachian Trail. Follow me at P Valentine 1959 on Instagram. I'll put it in here, and you can find. We'll probably be posting some pictures and see what happens. Again, thank you for this adventure. Stacy, you good? And she good? All right. She's finding.
Sorry, I've been very quiet today. I was just listening, but thank you.
Oh, you're listening and working at the same time. I noticed
Well,
that.
you already know that.
Stacy is a new executive director at CCAR. She's been on an adventure for 6 months or so, would you say?
I would say so.
Uh, Continue, everybody. Thank you so much. When I get back, whatever, I could be out there 6 days, 6 weeks, or 6 months. When I get back, we will reschedule some more coaching for coaches. So thank you for the session, and peace be with you. Bye for now.